Hello there! Firefight has been a pillar of Halo since ODST dropped in 2009, and ever since then it's had time to evolve and flourish into something amazing. Except it hasn't. ODST Firefight is still the best to this day. Halo Reach's rendition of Firefight was admittedly quite soon after ODST's, so I can see why they wanted to go for a different approach for players to have fun with a more arcadey version, instead of being the same experience as ODST's so soon after its release. Halo 4 had Spartan Ops, which was aggressively trying to be American military nonsense, which had a certain flair to it, but it became repetitive very quickly. Halo 5 technically had something called Warzone. I didn't play Halo 5, pretty sure you just shoot health bars. So in this video, I thought I'd like to highlight some things that I really like about ODST Firefight and why the most modern iteration, Infinite, is less than stellar. Brutes are scary. Halo ODST was an actual challenge. These giant hulky knaves were formidable opponents. They'd actively pursue you around the map and you'd hear them telling the grunts and jackals to find you, which really added to the atmosphere of being trapped on these maps.
Find him!
Help me find him!
I am with you. I have him. He's in cover.
The drone wave would begin, and all of a sudden you're frantically running inside an interior so you can reassess and not get picked clean by those flying buggers. A new wave would begin and you'd hear that worrying beeping sound of the doors reopening with more enemies. The silenced SMG and SOCOM pistol always makes you feel like a badass, one-shotting grunts and stunning jackals and getting that headshot. The ODST character you picked would throw out quips and lines, which were always great at certain moments.
Time for medicine! Thought you were just gonna walk right over us, didn't you? You overgrown, ponderous, waste of mass, scumbag! Run away, jackass!
If you are on an especially big map, there's a large chance you're going to have to deal with enemy vehicles, wraiths acting as mortars, banshees always picking off your health, choppers roaming like sharks around the map, phantoms and those damn turret grunts. The sound of Jeff Steitzer with his monotone delivery of
"No lives left"
was always great. I've always disliked his more enthusiastic approach 343 have directed him to do. I would keep the more energy driven performances for really high end medals like
unfreaking believable.
The map pool of ODST was generally areas from the campaign, but it's hard to know if they were designed as Firefight maps and placed in the campaign, or vice versa, as most of them work really well with the Firefight formula. Same goes for Reach maps to a lesser extent. Despite the dark atmosphere of the game, the music really helped sell those badass Firefight moments. Certain tracks had those drums kick in, prepping you for the next wave, or the ominous sounds that played when the phantoms would come rolling in. ODST Firefight was such a great addition to Halo and seemed to have a lot of passion put into it. So we have Halo Infinite. Firefight is back. After how many years? Well, it's not that good. It's missed a lot of things that made ODST Fight memorable. The actual enemies themselves feel more like a hump you have to get over to capture an objective, like they're just this nuisance. It's such a boring experience to play. Infinites, as of recording, are just multiplayer maps, which just doesn't work. Last Resort wouldn't work as a Firefight map in ODST. Don't know why they think it would have worked with Infinite. Enemies such as the Brutes aren't calling you out. They're not exactly that scary anyway. They seem to have been watered down to silly monkey man called Greg. There's no enemies in wraiths, choppers, ghosts, or banshees. Enemy bosses now have health bars instead of making enemies challenging, instead becoming bullet sponges. It's nullified the experience of what Firefight is to a meaningless, thoughtless, pointless grind to just capture objectives. In Infinite, you're given a plethora of power weapons along the way, all marked on the map. It wouldn't be that big of a deal if there wasn't ammo supplies pretty much everywhere filling up any and all ammo you have. 343 thought to create a Firefight all about power fantasy. About being the strongest Spartan, destroying the most deadly foes. Which doesn't always have to be a bad thing. They had an opportunity to create something fantastic. Infinite's Firefight is what Firefight is on a macro scale. Like if you had to design the entire thing only from it being described to you by someone who vaguely remembers what Firefight was like. It's designed for the sake of being a feature in a live service game because it was in a previous game and people wanted it. It's like they made it begrudgingly. When I first played it, it genuinely felt like it was something someone modded into the game as opposed to an official feature. I think the main issue is what they're doing is putting you on small maps with no exploration and an objective to capture. But small maps should almost always be about hunkering down and marking your territory. If ODST had objectives to hold, it would be as boring as Infinites. If they want to do an objective-based game mode within Firefight, they would have to be much larger spaces that center around an extraction formula. Basically Helldivers 2. Just go play Helldivers 2. They added the ability to have friendly AI join the fray. Reach Firefight did this on the DLC map Installation 04 with ODSTs, which was made by Certain Affinity and partly 343. But for some reason in Infinite, they're hunters and elites and not marines? Why do we have banished enemies as friendly AI? I've seen them waddle around, get shot by teammates who confuse them as enemies, even with the friendly outline around them, and for good reason. They're hunters and elites. You'd expect to shoot them. Why not have marines drop in via Pelican or ODST drop in via Hellpod? It would be way cooler.
Possibly make any more noise? I guess so.
I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope I can convince you to go back and try some ODST Firefight, as I still feel like it holds up even today. You can even try things like third-person perspective and flood mode, which was added relatively recently. Anyway,